All right, so if you've ever found yourself just staring at a focus group transcript, you know exactly what I'm talking about. It's this chaotic mess of overlapping sentences, side conversations, people changing their minds. It's a lot, and it's so tempting to just treat it like a bunch of interviews that all happened at once. But today, we're going to break down exactly why that's a huge mistake. Okay, let's dive into it.
You know, it's a question that can trip up even the most experienced researchers. You look at that wall of text, and unlike a nice, clean, one-on-one interview, the data just feels tangled. It's messy, almost impossible to neatly categorize. So where do you even start? Well, the answer isn't about working harder. It's about thinking differently.
The key to unlocking this coding chaos is really understanding three fundamental differences between a focus group and an interview. And these aren't just little details, they are total game changers. They redefine the very nature of the data you're analyzing. I promise, once you see them, you will never look at a transcript the same way again.
First up, let's talk about factor one, the social web. Think of it this way. An interview is basically a solo performance. A focus group, oh, that's a full-on improv show. The most important data isn't just what people say, but how they say it to each other. And this quote just hits the nail on the head. You can't just pull out a single sentence and expect to understand its full meaning in isolation. The real insight, the magic of a focus group, is found in the sparks that fly between the participants. It's in the agreements, the debates, and those shared aha moments.
So let's break this down. An interview gives you a self-contained narrative. It's one person's story, their perspective, told in a pretty straightforward way. A focus group, though, gives you something called socially constructed meaning. Ideas are built up, they're challenged, they're reshaped in real time by the group itself. It's a living, breathing thing.
And that means your coding has to be way more sophisticated. You're not just tagging themes anymore. Nope. You are capturing the actual interactions. You're asking who's agreeing with whom, whose idea is getting built on by others, who's dominating this conversation, and whose voice is getting lost in the shuffle. You literally have to track how opinions shift and evolve because of that group dynamic.
Okay, let's move on to our second factor, which builds right on top of this, the conversation's journey. If the first factor was about what you're coding, this one is all about where in the transcript you find the meaning.
Just picture a typical interview in your head. It's structured, right? The interviewer asks question A, gets answer A, then moves to question B. It's a logical, controlled sequence. You can think of it like a straight road.
A focus group, on the other hand, is like a winding path through a forest. A super important theme might pop up on page 1, disappear for 20 minutes, and then suddenly reappear on page 10 with a completely new layer of meaning, all because of something else the group talked about in between.
And what's so great about this slide is how clearly it shows the difference. An interview is linear and controlled, which makes coding pretty straightforward. But a focus group is dynamic and messy. You can't just code a single comment, you have to code it in the context of where it appeared on that long, winding journey.
And that brings us to our third and final factor, which might just be the most practical challenge of them all, defining your unit of meaning. In other words, what exact piece of text are you even applying a code to? I mean, this is the million-dollar question, isn't it? In an interview, it's usually pretty simple. The unit is the person's whole answer to your question. But in a focus group, is the meaningful unit just one person's sentence, or is it the entire back and forth between three people where an idea was debated, refined, and finally agreed upon? So here's the crucial point. Interview units are clear and bounded. You can draw a nice, neat box around them. Focus group units, they're overlapping and complex. One person's statement might be totally meaningless until you include the two comments that came right before it and the group's reaction that came after. And just look at some of the options here. You might decide your unit is a single person's turn to speak. Or it could be an entire exchange about a topic, which you then code as one single thing, like consensus building. You could even decide that a moment of group laughter is a codable unit that represents some kind of shared unspoken understanding. The choice you make here is going to dramatically shape your entire analysis. So, we've covered the three big factors: the social web, the conversation's journey, and the unit of meaning. But let's bring it all home. What does this actually mean for you, the researcher? Why does getting this right matter so much? This table really sums it up perfectly. Yeah, coding interviews is more efficient, it's more methodical. But coding focus groups, it's way more time-intensive, and it demands a huge amount of interpretive work from you.
Your coding scheme can't just be about content. It has to be sophisticated enough to actually capture all that interaction, context, and group dynamics we talked about.
And this, right here, is the bottom line. If you ignore these complexities and just count keywords like they were isolated interview answers, you are going to miss the entire point of doing a focus group in the first place. You will flatten a rich, dynamic conversation into a sterile, boring list of opinions, producing findings that aren't just simple, they're fundamentally misleading.
So, I'll just leave you with this thought. An interview is fantastic for understanding an individual's story, one person's perspective. But a focus group, with all its messiness and all its complexity, it reveals something much, much deeper. It shows us how ideas are socially formed, how they're negotiated, and how they're adopted by a group. It doesn't just give you a story, it shows you how stories are built together. And that's a truth worth digging for.